I saw the first.
Okay, welcome to the work session for the Board of Trustees of the Town of Buena Vista, Colorado. It's September 10th, 2024, and the time is 6:34. And tonight, we are going to learn more about what the town clerk, Paula Barnett, does. Thank you, Paula.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me. And if you'd like, it can be interactive. If you want to come up and see more of what some of the things I brought along, as far as
interactively.
Since I'm sitting here, I'm sitting close. I'm just curious. Did you inventory any of this?
That's a solid question though, Andrew.
yeah, exactly. All right. So on my presentation, the town clerk does not have cars with flashing lights, sirens, carry guns, tasers, or wear classy uniform. We don't have a fleet of trucks, heavy and small equipment, or array of tools, and are not responsible for providing safe drinking water and maintaining the roads, streets, and parks here in town. Their office is not called the Fun Factory, which provides recreation programs for our community's youth and adults, nor are we designing and maintaining amazing trails. At Town Hall, the staff only hears and sometimes sees the impressive planes, jets, and military helicopters that fly in and out of the airport. What we do get to do is to perform and administer various clerical and statutory duties, make and keep accurate records of all the official acts of the Board of Trustees, and to be custodians of the town seal. Here's our town seal. And we have multiple other little stamps that we get to use. We can pass this around. There's some interesting ones. You can ask questions later on some of them. And the clerk regularly attends Board of Trustee meetings after our advisory boards and intergovernmental meetings. The town clerk and deputy town clerk and Dave Lopey, the utility clerk extraordinaire, are the faces and voices of Town Hall. This dynamic threesome greets and provides information and directs residents, visitors, business colleagues, developers, and Texans in person and via the phone.
Is Texans, is that a protected class?
Yeah.
They're a unique class and we get to interact with a lot of them, and they're really kind. It's just interesting. As we all know, sometimes they do our part of Colorado as Little Texas.
They like to say so anyway.
You know, it's all good. Several of our frequently asked questions are, do you have public showers? Where are they located and how much do they cost? And we have a variety of public showers in town. So it's Cottonwood Pass open. And the question I got on Friday, will the fall colors be happening on the weekend of September 20th? Will they be happening in Crested Butte?
That's our favorite.
Actually, there's already color up on the hillside.
Yes, there is. Yeah. I told them you'd probably be very, very safe. There will be colors. So do we have public bathrooms? Where can we recommend to camp? Where do you recommend to eat? Where do you recommend we stay? And if we don't have the answers, we know where to send them to. We have a lot of really good subject matter experts here in town. So we make excellent babysitters. So the town clerk and deputy town clerk are responsible to oversee multiple functions. The Board of Trustees, we get to prepare your agendas, working hand in hand with the mayor and Brian. And then we do the packets, attend the meetings, prepare the minutes, and ensure you have candy.
So important and so loved.
Yes. All with the details. We got to keep y'all happy. So we ensure the resolutions adopted by the board are archived in a user-friendly manner on the server and ensure current and future employees know where to find them. This book here is the ordinance book from 1891 to 1957. So this is book number 2. Book number 1, the pages are starting to deteriorate. So I knew we didn't want to bring that up. So
1891.
That's worth looking at.
Yeah, for sure. My kids, can we pass that around?
I know.
The penmanship, yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't smell it. It smells like mice.
Sean came in earlier today and goes, what's that smell?
Are there things in there that are now totally obsolete?
Oh, yeah, sure, because we've changed ordinances and stuff, so.
Probably
They're over.
like your horse or something.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some things we need to bring back.
So
You're allowed to shoot somebody.
So once you know you guys approve an ordinance and things, and this is our modern day books. Much more modern to where we keep the signed ordinances by the mayor, myself, and plus the public notices where they're posted. So once the ordinances are adopted, we have to submit them to Chaffey County Times to be published in their legal notices, as well as I have to send them to Municode so that our book can be updated as well as our online resource. So all the municipal code is online. So the next thing that the town clerk oversees is the cemetery. So this is just a small portion of our books and things, and you guys are always welcome to come over and see all the books that we have, all the records that we have, different things like that. So my office, we oversee the sale of sites, burial sites, and then any general information. So we created a really nice handy dandy map. Cindy will attest, having the block markers out there was a huge improvement to the cemetery, plus having Jesse during the summertime. He maintains the cemetery and it has improved the appearance over the last couple of years. So
It needed it.
it did.
Yes,
The other thing that is on the,
and it is improved.
it has. So thank you for always campaigning on that.
Yeah.
Yes,
You've always,
it's a respect issue.
absolutely.
Someone that's been here forever and ever.
So it's one of the things, the cemetery, I've been very honored to be able to interact with families who just lost a loved one. And yes, I've cried with them, held them, and didn't even know them, but it's one of the best parts of my job. So. The other fun thing, elections. We all kind of know that's my passion since it's long term. Some of you have got to see the big official book of elections.
Oh, wow.
So if you ever want to take a peek, and then of course our handy dandy election boxes that we always have. Andrew was able to sit in on a couple of times when I explained the election process. Libby's sat in on it, but so after elections, we do liquor licensing. Currently, we have 34 liquor licenses in town.
Out of her bottom desk drawer.
Shortly thereafter. And for a period of time, continuing no more than.
We get candy, yeah.
Well, back in 2018, that was our election where we had 2 candidates for mayor and 11 candidates for trustee. And Dave Lopi came in on election day and he says, Paula, do you need anything? And I said, yes, liquor. Next thing I know, Dave comes in, puts a brown bottle, like a brown bag, right by my desk. The bottles of Maker's Mark. And yes, that night Dave was there to have a toast after hours.
Gotta celebrate after that.
And he
That's a
finished
lot of work.
second.
Yes, and he wasn't gonna run, so.
Okay.
yeah.
Countdown clock, Volpe.
The other thing that we do is our
Finish first.
licensing.
I was second.
So, we have the 2 retail marijuana stores.
Four votes.
Business licenses. So right over here, we have a copy of our business license, and here's some little businesses that we have in town.
Thank you.
Followed by our short-term rental licensing. We have 262 of those. So. And we'll be rolling into our 2025 renewal cycle, starting October 1st. So.
Paula, does that include the ones that are in South Main?
Yeah. So. The other things that the town clerk office does, we maintain the town website, retention of records, and then also Colorado Records Open Act. So anytime anybody requests information, if they want to know anything about what the police department is doing, we refer them to Judy Nyberg to give those records. If anybody wants any records from the Board of Trustees, anything, business licenses, planning, that all goes through me because we have to keep records of that. And we have 3 business days to get that turned around. So it is a quick turnaround time. So, all right, the next thing we do, we order supplies. You'd be amazed how much paper we go through at town hall and throughout the whole organization. Pens, pencils, you know, we got to make sure everybody has the tools they need to do the job. The other thing we do is notarize. We, town documents, there's no charge. Other people can come in and it's $5 a signature. So. And a vast assortment of other secondary duties, whatever, whatever needs to be done, we do, we're a team. So, and your packet was a 7-page report of a summary of, the number of business licenses, cemetery sites we've sold, liquor license renewed and things in your packet. Also, like I shared in the packet memo, was the different poems that were left.
Yeah.
Previous
It's really
works.
cute.
So there is quite the history. The other thing that I'm working on, my big project, is I'm working on creating the town clerk reference library, which is this little book here. And my goal is to have really good material in place for when I pass the baton on. As with any relay race, the most important part, along with your strong runners, is passing of the baton.
Very, very true.
Very true.
And the other thing, glue. In my professional and my personal life, I've always been referred to as the glue that holds things together. So I guess my nickname, along with being the town mom, is Elmer. So thank you for the honor and to be able to serve and to be your town clerk.
You do a great job. Thank you.
Right.
So
Make me sad.
Fill your time when you're not doing stuff.
I didn't hear what you said.
I was being a smart aleck. I said, what do you do to fill your time when you're done with all those other duties?
Oh, I love to read. I love to garden. You need to come over and see my garden.
Yeah, with mom.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I'm not at work, I'm out working. And yes, maybe have a glass of wine. So, yeah, that's it.
I was gonna ask what your favorite part of the job was, but you already answered it. Yeah. But answer it just on the off, like, what is your favorite part?
The people.
Yeah.
It's the people.
Yeah.
Yeah, not only you guys and the people I work with, it's the community. It's the people coming in here asking, okay, where do I eat? Our big question the last 2 weeks is, where's Sandy DeCristo's temporary office? That is a really big question right now, and things, trying to find that. So, no, it's just a lot of giving directions and things like that. And people coming in, people came in today, they just like to come in and see our building.
It's a cool building.
So we do have a handout that gives the history of the building that we share with people and things. We've had people one gentleman earlier this summer, his dad was the banker, not his dad, his great-great-grandfather was the banker who started that bank.
Wow.
So.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say, how often do you have to interact, or do you end up being asked questions, or have to reach out to other municipalities outside of the county? If that's not even a thing, but like.
As far as them reaching out to us, or we reaching out?
Yeah, is there any time that anything like that ever comes up, or is it pretty much everything just stays? I mean, I'm sure you work with Salida and Poncha at times.
Work with Salida and Poncha, and with my background with elections and stuff, West Cliff, Silver Cliff, they have reached out, for just some insight and guidance and things. I really was honored to work with Brian and Janine on a couple elections and things, because it takes a village.
Right.
And stuff. And we always, reach out to the other ones saying, how are you handling this? Short-term rentals. How's Salida handling short-term rentals? How's Poncha handling short-term rentals and things? Because especially in our county, we all kind of want to know what the other one's doing. Right. So.
The listserv for clerks is about as active as they come to.
Yeah.
So listserv, basically a list of clerks, and they can blast the question out. Then if somebody picks it up and knows the answer, they'll respond to the group.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
And the clerks list, and that's run through Colorado Municipal League and things. It's also a good place to know what's coming up on the radar. That's where we learn a lot of different things as far as some of the liquor license changes, because we have clerks, especially in the metro area, who are really involved in those committees and things when things are coming up, different, changes on the liquor. So, and even some different changes that came up on elections. Andrew, you had a
I
question?
have two questions. I'll ask the first one. You've been doing this a long time,
For Buena Vista, will be 7 years this Friday.
but I mean,
Oh,
but
wow.
and you've been clerk before that as well.
Let's see, my history goes back, I started in 1998 out in Lincoln County, and I was a deputy county clerk, and then I became the county clerk for 4 years. And then I moved back to the city and I worked for Adams County Elections for 4 years, Secretary of State's office in their election division for 8 years. And then that's when I decided I wanted to start thriving instead of existing. And I rolled over and I worked for Lori Mitchell in the Chaffey County office as her election director for 1.5 years. And then I've come here to Buena Vista.
So my question is, over the course of your career, what's something that you have, if there's any one thing you can see that has really changed?
The scrutiny, a lot of aspects of the job and things, especially the election aspect of it. The people have changed, much more rules and regulations, just being in compliance.
What do you see for your successor? What do you think will be the biggest challenge?
The biggest challenge, I think, the huge learning curve, because there is so much to learn. You know, liquor licenses, we have 34 licenses, but some of those are tavern license, some of them are hotel restaurant licenses, and some of them are just wine and beer license. Everyone is a different thing. You know, once you get the renewal, once you get the license issued and things, the renewal process is standard. But as far as that first initial license where it comes before the Board of Trustees, there's always been some different things about them. When we did the Buena Viking food truck, that had some unique facets to it.
So just the learning curve of whoever fills your shoes is gonna be big for the job. And then
Even
you
bigger.
have big shoes to fill.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we're gonna get somebody who's really dynamo
Yeah.
to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hopefully not for a while.
Hopefully not for a while.
We never know.
Yeah.
So, other than that, that's all I got. I'm gonna swing this around so you guys can. flip through.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start this earlier. So-
No, I agree with all these things.
I'm gonna
Do you agree with that?
As to
Yeah,
what
that
we
no
all-
person shall manufacture or sell fully owned margarine within the limits of town.
We got better, so there you go.
Yeah.
Gotta have better.
And prohibiting bicycle riding on the sidewalks.
There you go.
Yeah, please.
You shall be confined to the caboose until you pay your fine. Town caboose.
Thank you, Paula.
Thank you, guys.
Like the big book of elections.
The big book of elections.
Like a little children's book here.
And I have a lot of other books of elections.
Actually, gonna go party. She's kind of a winner.
I know. Like, we really have to have our meeting.
It's
Possible.
little interactive.
There's
I have a whole bunch of
some
slides.
newspapers.
Yeah, I know, right?
Did you say you do notarizations?
Uh-huh. Yeah, we don't notarize anything that deals with real estate, nothing that deals with property.
That makes sense.
So the
How are you
candidates.
doing?
Wanted to hear the water conservation.
Oh, I agree.
I've been driving Sean so crazy on the planet.
So I
Take it,
Snacks?
take it off. Take it.
Welcome to the meeting of the Board of Trustees for the town of Buena Vista, Colorado. The date is September 10th, 2024, and the time is 7:01 p.m. So I'd like to ask you to silence your cell phones. And Paula, would you call the roll, please?
Okay,
Here?
trustee Height,
Here?
trustee Lucrezi,
Here.
trustee Rice.
Here.
Trustee Rosenauer,
Here.
trustee Rowe,
Here.
and trustee Swisher.
She wants to-
Yeah. She's on her way back. Oh,
She's walking.
here
There
she
she
is.
is. Say here. Here.
Here.
There you go.
Okay, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Trustees, you have before you an agenda for tonight's meeting. I'd like to know if there are any proposed changes to the agenda. Gina?
Mayor, I would, if the trustees agree, like to make a motion to move business item E, Dibble and Associates Consulting Engineering, to the top. So I think it will be a fairly quick business item and, that way Jack doesn't have to wait for the end of the evening. So,
Okay. Jack, is that okay with you?
Absolutely, Mayor.
Okay. Is there a second to Gina's motion?
Second.
Okay, so we have Lucrezi and Rice. And all in favor?
Aye.
So the agenda is adopted with that one change. And then the consent agenda is in your packet as well. Are there any items in the consent agenda that anyone would propose to pull out of the consent agenda and treat separately as business items? Any other comments on the consent agenda? Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Was that, Lucrezi and Hike? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the consent agenda is adopted. Now we come to the part of our meeting that is for public comment. Anyone may speak for up to 3 minutes. Have no comment, but no one has signed in on the clipboard. Brian, is there anyone on Zoom?
Nobody has their hand raised.
Okay, then that's the end of public comment. So we'll move to discussion of the Dibble and Associates Consulting Engineers. And the question here is, should the Board of Trustees approve the adoption of resolution number 64, series 2024, entitled "A Resolution of the Board of Trustees for the Town of Buena Vista, Colorado, approving the agreement for professional services provided by Dibble Engineering for the 2024 apron rehabilitation and expansion design phase." So this is yours, Jack.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, trustees, and thank you, trustee Lucrezi, for bumping us up to the top here. It should be quick because if you recall, the last time I was here, we asked for approval to accept the FAA funding and agreement. And prior to that, we had the CDOT funding and agreement to that for this very same project. This is again, just the design phase. In 2025, this will come back around and we'll do this again, but it'll be the construction phase of it. So the whole package starts on page 199 of the packet and starting with the memo. So we're just asking if Dibble can be the official contractor for this project. They did re-sign their master agreement in December of 2023. So we had them under contract as our engineer contractor prior to that for 5 years, and then we just renewed for another 5 years. Now we're just saying to bring them under the town contract for this specific project. That's what we're doing here. And the funding is already approved, so the total funding for this project approved by the FAA is $189,000, but Dibble is only asking for $184,862. So they're coming in under the budget that's been authorized for this project. And everything else there. So like I said, to start here, the resolution itself is on page 201 followed by the town contract on page 202, and then Dibble's proposal starts on page 207. So if there's any questions, I certainly will entertain that.
Does anyone have any questions for Jack? Okay, do I hear a motion to approve resolution number 64, series 2024?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 64.
Second. So we have Swisher and Lucrezi. Fast tonight. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the motion passes. You get the night off.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Next item is with regard to the Chafee Housing Authority intergovernmental agreement updates.
We've actually got what was A becomes B as far as the water.
Oh, sure, okay, I'm sorry, yeah. Yep, okay, we're going to the Water Conservation Plan update. Hi, Al, please, come forward.
Okay, trustees, thanks for having me. Is there a way for me to drive?
Yeah, maybe, hold on. Switch it up. No, and I'll get it.
Next slide, next slide. Great, well, thanks for having me. Looking forward to sharing an update on where we are with the Water Conservation Plan. If you don't know me, my name's Al Smith. I'm with Swiftwater Solutions. We are a consultant for the town of Buena Vista. So we've been working on, well, Brian's pulling this up. I can just give you a couple quick recap. So we've been working on the Water Conservation Plan since Q1 of this year. The Water Advisory Board, in conjunction with town staff, Sean Williams, were able to secure funding from the Colorado Water Conservation Board to complete this. And we're doing it in accordance with the Colorado Water Efficiency Plan for municipalities. And that's effectively what becomes the conservation plan. And so we've been in a series of completing a number of tasks and deliverables to get there. And we'll get into that. So if you were here for the last update, this is a similar presentation with a few, few additional items as we've completed tasks along the way. So this is a joint effort, Water Advisory Board, Colorado Water Conservation Board, Town of Buena Vista, and Swiftwater Solutions. So a little bit about the presentation or the update is, we'll go back through the how we got here and what led us to needing to perform the Water Conservation Plan, what Colorado Water Efficiency Planning is, the elements included in the town's that will be included in the town's water efficiency plan, and then what to expect in 2024 and moving into 2025, and then any time for comments and discussion. So how we got here, so there's been a number of planning items, and if you were here for my previous presentation, apologies, but just as a refresher, there have been a number of planning documents completed for the town since about 2012, where There was a draft water efficiency plan for the town completed in 2012. It was never adopted, but if you look in there, there will be some, similar items to what we're doing because we're following guidance provided by the Colorado Water Conservation Board. In 2014, we had a water resource master plan that we had been following those recommendations that was published by or produced by RG and Associates. We're still consultant to the town. And now if you fast forward, we're operating under the recommendations of the 2021 Water Resource Master Plan. In between those, we gave a presentation to the Water Advisory Board and eventually to the Board of Trustees about town growth projections. And that led to some understanding of the need to perform the water treatment plant expansion feasibility study, and which ultimately led to the construction project that we're in now, which is a water treatment plant expansion and infiltration gallery expansion project. I'm sure you've heard a lot about that through Sean's updates this year, and hopefully that'll be wrapping up by the end of the year. And then in 2024, the grant was secured through CWCD, and now we're working on the water conservation plan. And some other items that are in the works is long-term water infrastructure master planning. One of the projects that's ongoing is a planning phase for a well number 4, which will be another potable water well for the distribution system. And a lot's happening in town. We've got changes of growth, water treatment plant expansion project. We've got plan improvements for the well number 3, which will probably tie into well number 4. So those are going to happen concurrently. And then leak detection, which is a theme of our water conservation plan. So you can see there's a lot of water related stuff going on in town. And one of the things that's happening that's trying to stitch some of these ideas together is a water conservation plan. We have limited resources and water. How are we going to use that best and make good decisions moving forward? So overview of water efficiency planning, what we are doing. So there's a Colorado water plan for the state, and that handles water on a larger scale, like what's happening in the Arkansas River Basin, what's happening in the Colorado River Basin, how do you plan at a state scale. But we're drilling into what's happening at a municipal scale, and that's the municipal water efficiency plan. And that's largely looks at, or a subset of that is Colorado Water-Wise best practices, which is more or less where we're at in the stage of our water conservation plan, which I'll talk about in just a little bit. So what we are attempting to do through a series of technical memos, of which we've completed 3 out of 6, the 6th technical memo is technically the water conservation plan. So memos 1 through 5 will get basically rolled together, repackaged, put together as a water conservation plan, and then attached at the back end as appendices, so you can see the kind of how we got here of that. So we've completed some of these here, but these are just the general elements of the conservation plan. So we want to do a profile of existing water system. What sources do we have? What infrastructure do we have? What are we working with? We want to know water demands, what people in town are using, what commercial entities, industry is using. And then we want to look at integrated planning and water efficiency benefits and goals. So how can the town use this information, use the best management practices within the Colorado Water-Wise efficiency guidance to kind of steer and make choices about what we can do from a water conservation standpoint. And then select those certain activities that make the most sense for town. And there's a lot of them in there. You could select all of them if you wanted, but I imagine that after some discussion, we'll settle on some that make the most sense for town. And then, of course, there's implementation of the plan and monitoring that plan. Get it out, get it working, evaluate if it's working. And before the water conservation plan is released, there's obviously a formal adoption by the town. Prior to that, a public review, and then ultimately approval of the water efficiency plan. So We'll get into this a little bit more, but we're effectively at this sub bullet number 3 right here. Probably don't need to go into this too much, but this is basically like the tenets of water efficiency planning are that you want to develop goals that reflect the water supply system needs. The town's going to select implementable water efficiency goals that address water conservation concerns, and that can be tracked to monitor progress. There's going to be a key component is involvement of public and community group input, participation. We've been engaging with the Water Advisory Board. That's a public forum. We've been giving updates here. That's a public forum. And we're going to be having some work sessions in the coming months once we get that organized. And the very busy construction season is winding down a little bit as we move into winter. So anyway, these probably don't need to read all of them, but these are kind of the core tenets of water efficiency planning. And so what we've done is we have issued a final draft memo in May for how we're going to go about community engagement. So that hasn't yet been rolled out yet, but there are some items in there in terms of putting out water conservation flyers. So ahead of next year's high demand season in the summertime, irrigation season, we can work on, voluntary, water conservation efforts just by being smarter about how and when we water. There are community surveys that will be implemented at some point between now and next year, trying to understand how people feel about water conservation. What are folks doing currently for water conservation? Do you like xeriscaping? Are you using low flow fixtures? Probably most people are at this point. But just try to understand what the town demographic and how people actually feel about water conservation. That'll help us understand how to best roll the plan out. And then, of course, develop incentives, if any exist, that the town decides to select and implement. Utilize Colorado Water Conservation Board best practices, and then one of the ideas, which is not fully vetted yet, but is one of the recommendations of Memo 3, is the idea of having a water conservation coordinator. And I understand from Brian that there is a sustainability coordinator being hired at the county level. And so perhaps there's some opportunity for coordination there if they're allowed to work across jurisdictions. So that's great. And we'll have to update the technical memo 3 to include that information. So our task 2 and subsequently technical memo number 2 was trying to understand what our water use baseline was. And so we have a final draft of that. It was completed in July. And this is basically looking at the population and demographic trends. What kind of water demand we have, how is the water usage changed by season and by user? And so trying to look at different user groups and understand, if water conservation efforts are to be made, where's the biggest biggest gains to be made. And then also looking at some of the water system infrastructure capacity. And so some of the challenges that we've been up against in recent years, like the lack of infrastructure, having water rights, but not necessarily the infrastructure to get the water into the pipes has been a big concern. So understanding that's why we're doing the water treatment plant improvement project, but then also looking out, so how does a project like that, how far down the road does that get us? How far do our water rights get us? And how much extend the lifespan of those items if we were to implement water conservation practices? And then task 3, which we completed in late July of 2024. This is a typo, ignore these bullets. That was just duplication previously, but we're going to go into this a little bit. So this is looking at, okay, and it's not exhaustive, which is why we haven't completed a final draft of the technical memo yet. We still have to have a discussion with the Water Advisory Board, review and input from town staff to understand what water conservation goals and actions can we put into place that make sense for town? And so this is kind of an a la carte menu of these are the best practices. This is a review of the water demand and use patterns and potential areas that you could target to get those savings. And we can go into that a little bit. So just a little bit of a refresher on Colorado water-wise best practices. There's 14 of them in all, and all 14 are included in technical memo number 3. Some are going to be more realistic to implement than others, and some have already been implemented. For example, we're not a town that needs to implement metering anymore, but having a conservation-oriented rate and tap fee may be something to consider moving forward. And there's already a tiered rate structure in place that could be used for, conservation-oriented rate structure. Customer categorization within billing system. We're not an enormous municipality, and the town already does this to some degree. So you can, and this is the case across the board with these best practices. The town may already be doing some of these things. There are some things the town could be doing better that are already on the books, and there are some things that town might want to consider implementing as a new item moving forward. And so things like system water loss control, that would be leak detection. Town already does a lot of leak detection in-house and is very successful, but there's still improvement. Conservation coordinator, as the item I just mentioned earlier, that would be somebody who could look at doing irrigation audits or, helping folks understand xeriscaping and, how that might improve water use or reduce water use rather. Adopting a formal water waste ordinance. Right now in the town code, the ordinance has some general language about, not wasting water, but there's nothing really in there that, has a lot of teeth in terms of the water waste ordinance. And so those are, public information and education. This could be, 4 and 6 are probably tied together in some way. And as you can see, as you go down, there are lots that can be adopted. Maybe some make sense more than others. And so we tried to distill this down and into, okay, how are we going to get 5% water conservation? How are we going to get 10% water conservation? How are we going to get 15% water conservation? And these are, perhaps we're setting the bar too low. I know that we've gotten feedback from some water advisory board members that we should be targeting higher numbers, but we're trying to, understand realistically, like what can be achieved. And so if you look at the 2-year planning horizon, reduce water demand, one of the biggest things we can do is increase our leak detection and water loss control. And so perhaps that means hiring a professional or hiring additional staff to dedicate, solely to that. And then along with that could be potentially looking at water main replacements in key areas of town. For example, the 1965 and 1966 cast iron is notorious for having leaks on it. And there've been a lot of repairs on that. And those tend to be large leaks in the 50 to 100 gallon per minute range. And it's because whoever installed the pipe, embedded it on top of rock and boulders and the pipe cracks. So some ideas, and again, we're just putting ideas forward. These have not been fully vetted through the Water Advisory Board. These are just, menu of ideas to reach these goals. And so, for example, for a 5-year goal to reduce water demand by 10% is to, over the next 5 years, roll out a more conservation-oriented rate structure that has increasing financial costs incurred for higher water users. I know, sure that'll be met with mixed opinion on rolling that out, but that is an option that can be done. Water waste ordinances that and watering restrictions, especially in summers with little rainfall. And then there's the possibility of developing landscape irrigation budgets and incentives, and then work with residential and commercial stakeholders to reduce water usage. So looking at the numbers, we think it's realistic over 5 years to get a 10% reduction by implementing these. And then looking a little bit more aspirational and out to 10 years, you would try to incorporate as many of the elements of the WaterWise best practices that make sense for town as possible to get there. Yes.
You may have said this and I may have missed it, but 5%, 10%, what's the baseline year that you're referencing for those percentages?
Baseline year, I think we would be, so each year is a little bit different. And so if you go and look at the information in technical memo number 2, we're looking at an average basically from the most relevant average is probably from 2016, 2017, when town growth really took off substantially. But we look at both from the previous water efficiency plan 2012 through 2023, and then 2016, 2017 through 2023. Look at that as an average. And the reason why we're using average is because if you have a really wet summer, you see the water use plummet. And if you have a really dry summer, it really goes up, and it tracks precipitation, you know, not perfectly, but pretty well.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. So, no, that's a great question. So what is next? So what's going to roll out of task number 3, which is the menu of alternatives that can be selected, is the town selection of water conservation alternatives that make sense for town. And then implementation and monitoring plan. This is going to be, how are we going to roll out the water conservation plan? And how are we going to monitor the success and progress of that? And then the official water conservation plan is due early 2025. And if you look back at our original proposal, you'll see that we had a much more aggressive timeline than what is currently shown on the screen. But we have adjusted course, and that has relaxed a little bit to be flexible for town and staff needs, and review timelines with Water Advisory Board through our volunteer board, and to make sure that we are able to engage with town in a meaningful way, and we're not just trying to meet deadlines for the sake of meeting deadlines. So that was a lot of me speaking to y'all. So if y'all have any questions, I'd love to take them.
Questions, trustees? Looks like you're off to a good start.
Yeah, thanks. We're trying.
Yeah.
And we've got an exciting week next week. We've got a joint planning and zoning and water advisory board meeting, and then followed by a water advisory board meeting the following day, which we'll probably get to discuss a lot of the things that we just talked about in terms of the alternatives for town.
Good, well, thank you, Phil.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Okay, now we will go to item B as in the agenda. And this has to do with the Chaffey Housing Authority intergovernmental agreement updates. Joseph, is this you as the chair of?
I'm happy to be here and answer any
Housing
questions from
Authority,
CHA, but
Yeah, I can
Was it
field this.
Brian?
Yeah, I can field this one.
Okay,
So we've got 2 separate IGAs. The first one is, we're gonna call the founding IGA, and this is the IGA that was finalized in 2020 that established the Chaffey Housing Authority, created the structure, how to appoint members, the breakdown of membership, number of board members, everything like that. The changes associated with that are pretty baseline, minimal. The primary change in that one, the prior executive director for CHA relayed some challenges she was having with alternate members. So the current structure is we got 2 full voting members from Salida, 2 from BV, 3 from the county, and then 2 at large. And then each party is allowed 1 alternate, and so that alternate is basically called up if one of the full voting members is unable to attend. What has resulted from that structure was that alternate member being called up for a spot meeting, and there may be an agenda item that had been discussed over multiple meetings. And so they come up without that background, without being part of that discussion, and then are asked to vote one way or another. And has the potential where they're not voting in line with what the full voting member would vote. So Ashley had relayed concerns and challenges associated with that. There was discussion of which way or how do you solve that issue. One is to make the alternates full-blown members, which would result in a 12-member board, 13 if you want an odd number. 13-person board is a relatively large board, probably too large, to be honest. Or you go the opposite route and just get rid of the alternate members. The current alternates are aware of this structure, really consists of the administrators working as alternate members. We have the ability to stay attuned to what's going on with CHA, kind of the same level as we are now without having to sit in and vote on items that we're not fully knowledgeable on. So that's the primary edit to the founding IGA. There are a couple other cleanups as far as the initial terms were staggered, 2021, you'll stagger them, and so they have staggered terms, so you're not having full board turnover in one particular year. There's another stipulation that allowed removal of a board member if a jurisdiction feels it's in the best interest of the jurisdiction or the authority at the sole discretion of the jurisdiction. And then some editorial format and stuff like that. So perhaps we stop there, consider resolution 62 and then hop into the next one.
Okay, great. Are there any questions for Brian, first of all?
One quick, just clarifying question. So the eliminating, actually I say, so with the jurisdictions, if they want to remove their appointed member, that can be done at any time. It's not like a time frame they have to wait for. It would just be, and that would be decided, I guess, by
The
our
board.
board. Okay. Thank you.
It'd probably be seldom, but it would be a board action, just like the board appoints the representative. They also have the ability to remove them if the need arises.
Any other questions? Andrew?
Yeah, what was the thought process behind why there were alternates in the first place?
I don't know if they were concerned about the board members providing regular attendance and worried about getting forums at any given meeting. I don't know as far as that they've had that challenge with getting a quorum at each individual meeting. Over the past year, I've been called 1 time. So it seems like the current board members are dedicated. They show up to the scheduled meetings, and that has not been an issue.
And then the thought process, there's a 7 board with 2 additional that are appointed by the board and confirmed by the member agencies.
Yeah.
What's the thought process behind that? Why are they necessary?
That darn Poncha Springs backed out at the last minute and restructured it. So it allows for basically 2 placeholders if another jurisdiction would want to join.
But if another jurisdiction joined, you could always modify it.
True, yeah, but I think it's intentional to show that kind of, hey, there are seats here ready.
How has that been received?
Depends on who you talk to. But I think that at large is working pretty well as well. That if there's a certain individual, perhaps BV's got a large quantity of individuals that are excited to contribute, and we've only got 2 spots to give, they still have that opportunity to apply for the at-large position. I think it also provides that a little bit of a fallback on that stipulation that at least one member has to have lived experience. And so kind of calls out in there if that one individual isn't from BV Slaughter of the county, the at-large has to be used for it. And so it provides a little flexibility on that side. So one municipality doesn't, if they don't have an applicant that meets that criteria, but we have to have somebody like that, could get interesting or a little difficult. So the at-large provides that flexibility.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're not here to discuss the structure of it or anything, but it does seem like the efficiency of a board is inversely proportional to the number of members. And more than 7 just seems like a lot. And it just seems like from an efficiency standpoint, it seems like that board would be directly accountable to the 3 member agencies.
I think another aspect of the 9 opposed to like a 7 is making sure there's not a disproportionate control by one entity. And so if you look at 7 and the county's got 3, they're pretty close to having the majority on every aspect. So I mean, I think that's something that was contemplated as well.
Yeah, and as an agency that definitely spends or administers taxpayer money, most of our boards in the county that have a direct influence on taxpayer funding their boards are directly accountable to the taxpayers, whether it's the sand district or the hospital or the fire district or the towns.
Yeah.
And if the ballot measures pass, this is going to go up a notch. And so our oversight, should go correspondingly up quite a bit, I would think.
Yeah.
And that board is not directly accountable to an electorate. It's indirectly accountable through us, and then that board itself picks 2 more people they like to hang out with them.
Yeah,
It's
and I
just
think that
awfully insulated to me.
that's why there was pretty instantaneous pushback that at least indirect control, that connection back to the Board of Trustees, which is elected by the residents, has that direct, connection, linear connection, rather than amending that section. I do think it was very intentional to keep that language that you guys as a board appoint 2 members to represent BV.
Yeah, I totally get that. Totally on board with that. It's just the alternates where it seems like that board selects 2 more to join them.
Sure.
Which is a few measures insulated from an electorate.
Yeah, but 2 out of 9 is not terrible.
And 7 work better than 9 and 5 work better than 7. Anyway, I know I'm just asking why. I don't know that we're in a position to change things. It just seems like, efficiency and effectiveness are sometimes compromised the more chefs you have in the kitchen.
It's true. And I think that, right now we're essentially reducing from 9 + 3 to just 9. So we're heading that direction rather than the opposite direction. And it's first amended and restated. We get further down the line, it can be second amended, restated.
I mean, Joseph, can we ask for?
Yeah, I'd like to. Joseph has been part of the board for a long time.
You've been herding cats.
Yeah,
Do you like herding more cats or less cats?
less cats. I definitely hear you on the efficiency side of having fewer board members. I also think that as the housing authority matures, only being a 3.5, 4-year-old organization, we do, in a very real sense, I think, owe it to you all and to the rest of the county to take baby steps and not take really aggressive action before we understand the implications, especially on the governance side. So to Brian's point, going from a 9 + 3 model, which has led to a decent confusion and inefficiency, going to a 9 only, having that clarity. We'll bring this up, Brian will bring this up in the funding IGA, I'm sure, but if sales tax ballot measure passes, there will be necessarily more conversations about the structure of CHA and about how to ensure that we all feel comfortable with its governance, its oversight, its accountability to the electorate. So I definitely hear you. I think this is a step in the right direction, and I would definitely support it from my side at the board chair level.
Mika?
I will say too, Andrew, that, Joseph, I served as the BV rep, one of the BV reps for a couple of years, and right now, I think the CHA board is very much a working board. We'd like to get it to a place where it is more of a governing board, but there has been a lot of work to do. And I think it's been helpful to have lots of people on the board to help do that work, whether it's executive director hiring and onboarding, or committees to set up the mission statement, things like that. So I also agree that over time, it would be nice to reduce the numbers. I think it has been very helpful, though, in the beginning stages of the organization, to have lots of people to add to the time commitment that they could put into.
And it does seem like it's gone in various, there's been some
Totally.
pushes and pulls in various directions, and some of that is productive,
100%.
so it's not.
Yeah, and I think it has made sense for this age of the organization, I think, and it makes sense to reduce it, I think, going forward. But I agree with Joseph that going from 9 + 3 to just 9 feels like a healthy step, rather than reducing it to a workload that might be unsustainable given where the organization is at right now, especially with another ED transition on the way.
And then another question I do have here on 69 is item 4. Looks like there's a requirement to adopt an annual audit to be presented to each member jurisdiction. We haven't seen those, have we?
I have not seen it in the 1 year I've been here.
So do you mind if I just weigh in on that real briefly, Mayor?
No, please,
Yeah.
do it.
So it's a great question. The Housing Authority has been under the fiscal oversight of the county for the first 3 years of its life. The first year of its life that it's had its own audit of its own financials has been this past year. That audit was just presented, and a management report was presented to the board of CHA in July, I want to say. And so I do believe, as a part of that ED transition, that annual report back to you all occurred, but probably did not include that audit report. As we move forward and that audit becomes a more normal part of our operations as an independent organization, I would expect that reporting to make it up its way all the way back to you.
And my understanding is some of the debrucing issues, we kind of got out ahead of ourselves a little bit. Right, with some, with undertaking some, with receipt or being, receiving some grant funds and then realizing that will pose a taper problem. Is that something that would be not expected to be repeated with more of the focus on the annual audit?
The debrucing topic was discovered by our bond attorneys as part of underwriting for financing for a development project. So it actually wasn't even brought up by the auditor.
Really?
I do think the debrucing question and the debrucing action is a one-time action that will move.
First, certainly, but it's just like would that have been caught under some a more strict scrutiny of an audit in earlier years to say this is.
Well, CHA finances were still audited as part of the county audit each year. And, we all can look to ourselves as being parts of the formation of that entity and parts of the letters of support for those grants and over the past 30 years. And I don't think no one caught it.
No one caught it. And my understanding is if it doesn't pass, there's probably some unwinding that has to happen that might be painful.
If the debrucing does not pass, there are some pretty existential questions for the housing.
Sorry for the long Q&A.
That's very good. Thank you.
I was just looking for the term, but then for this, because let's say, less cooks in the kitchen, like you're saying, we go down to 9, let's say you want to do 7 at some point, if it makes sense, or, but would that have to be done in a new term? And then when I get to the bottom, was it 76, and it says provisions in term, and then it goes down to page 77, whatever, I guess, number C or letter C. Is there another renewal of this, or is this in perpetuity until?
Good question.
This one was in the perpetuity as establishing the CHA itself. And so no term is associated with it.
Just, okay, I see what you're saying. It's just so there's no, so our board and I guess essentially Salida and then the county, is there opportunity to come back in and have further discussion, or after this?
Yeah, I mean, this one got raised as far as the edits to this from the CHA executive director. I think CHA, regardless of how November goes, you'll have multiple touch points, whether it's appointing a new individual or we'll probably talk budget, this time next year as far as funding in 2026, depending on November goes. Really the 2-year staggered things, you'll see applications and appointing a representative annually. And unless CHA spurs it up, it could be any board member on any of the 3 jurisdictions to say, hey, is 9 still working, or do we want to go 7? It would take just one individual to kind of highlight, hey, let's take a look at this.
That's a good question, because I think as our board, we appoint representatives of this board to serve on that board. And so there's an oversight function that the 3 boards need to provide. And I just wonder if that's, is this something that would be ideal to revisit at some interval, i.e. the idea of like, hey, things are really moving, the board should get down to 7, and those 7 members are directly accountable to their electorate.
Yeah. And it could be something, especially, I think it's a new board, it's a new organization, depending on what happens in November, making sure that bond and that connection partnership continues. It could be even something as simple as making a point to have scheduled work sessions with your representatives, that are on CHA, just get an update, get a pulse on them. Whether it's annual or some type of cadence to have those discussions, or relay concerns as a board in the realm of housing that says, hey, we want you to focus on this, or have you guys focused on this or that, and an update generally from the representatives. That could be another way of going about it.
Yeah, because for me, it's really just, I love what CJ is doing. It's very important. So I'm all for it, but I just want to make sure that, the board does have the opportunity to be a part of it once it is its own entity, it sounds like, and this isn't something you can come back to because of the 2/3 thing. It might be harder to open the door again. I just want to make sure there is room for those conversations, especially, moving forward, if we're all in it together in that sense. So anyhow, I didn't notice that in my initial scan, and sorry to bring that up now. Again, not trying to throw a wrench, still for moving forward with this, but I just want that, I guess, reassurance that there's that flexibility and ability to have those conversations if there are any big directional changes, if you will.
Yeah, and this will come up in the funding IGA, but in the funding IGA, there are reporting requirements back to jurisdictions tied to the funding that you're all providing. So some of those annual check-ins are mentioned in there. I will say that, this funding IGA is essentially a founding charter or bylaws in essence of the organization. We have our own bylaws as an organization that have to comply with this IGA, but generally you wouldn't want a term limit on your bylaws.
Sure.
Right? They can always be amended, but you don't want to create an existential deadline for the organization itself as an entity. So I do think check-in mechanisms are absolutely appropriate, accountability is absolutely appropriate, but having some sort of term tied with this particular IGA is probably not the function of that particular document.
Okay, any further discussion? Is there a motion to pass resolution number 62, series 2024?
So moved.
Yeah,
Second.
and Lucrezi. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the motion passes. The second part of the business item is the proposed funding agreement. And ultimately, it would be good to have a resolution motion to pass the funding agreement. Does anyone have any questions or comments on the funding? Brian, do you want to describe it at all, or?
Yeah, I could touch on it briefly. Context, the original funding IGA was finalized in 2021, providing funds in fiscal years 21 through 24. That funding runs out at the end of December 2024. Everybody's fully aware of a potential ballot question in November, and there's uncertainty around that. There was a desire to at least get this in place for 2025. Two reasons, so we know the budget impact as we navigate through that, and two, provide CHA at least some security moving into 2025 regardless of the outcome. So 2025, we've structured it as committed regardless of which way it goes. And then 2026, there's 4 scenarios, 2 ballot questions, both pass, both fail. One passes and the other fails both ways. And then also subject to appropriations like any other thing. So it opens the door to discuss 2026 next year. At that time, we'll know kind of where this November's ballot question fell. And so we've had conversations with CHA throughout the administrators. A good chunk of it's coming from the lodging tax, utilizing the ability to reallocate that was passed, I think, 2 years ago. So outside of that, I think that's kind of a good first step there.
Any comments or questions on that? So what we're looking at is $15,000 from the town of Buena Vista for 2025, and 35,000 from Salida, and 50,000 from the county, plus the transfer of the lodging tax, right?
Correct.
Okay. So is there a motion in regard to Resolution 63, Series 2024?
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution number 63, series 2024.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have Swisher and Hike. Is there any further discussion? So all in favor?
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Great, thank you, Joseph.
Thank you.
Brian. So now we have a interesting part of our agenda with the Child Care Center. So very, very excited to see that coming together. So Brian, is this you or?
Yep, I can fill in. Joseph's here to fill in. Again, kind of similar. We'll just tackle it together. So Carbonate Street, as everyone's fully aware, is consists of the 60-unit affordable housing project as well as the child care facility. Child care facility has contracts on it to basically build the core and shell of it, utilizing American Relief funds from the town and then other funds from Fading West. It will be owned by the town, the building and facility, once it's built, with the understanding that secure funding is for the core and shell. There is potential next agenda item that money is available to finish the interior. Or the idea of getting childcare operator on now is to allow them to be part of the design, to ensure that those that are going to operate it can contemplate what the layout looks like, are familiar with state licensing requirements, where new sinks need to be in the classrooms, where bathrooms need to be in the classroom. That'll also be dictated by the age groups. So we discussed the RFP at a prior meeting, put it out to advertisement. We did get 2 proposals back. One local, we do have Gwen here with Shining Mountains. The other one was submitted by a national firm. Did kind of, that was the edit in Joseph's as far as the national firm, the part of their proposal was a management fee of 200,000 for a small facility or 250,000 a year for a large facility with an escalator plus utilities plus building maintenance, playground maintenance and janitorial services. So pretty steep subsidy, if you will, from the town would be required to go with them. So viewed that as kind of a non-starter. So kind of honed in on Shiny Mountains to move forward with. Part of tonight is to identify basically the green light to enter exclusive negotiations with them. Next steps would basically be start to provide the structure for a term sheet. It of course would have a number of stipulations, you know, with the funding not 100% secure and committed. For interior finish, it'll have outs in it and stuff like that, but start those high level, what do the terms look like? And then work with Shiny Mountains and their board to come back for a work session and really dive into the details associated with it. So nothing set in stone, but this is kind of the first step to say, yes, let's continue and start that relationship or continue that relationship since they are in the Rose and Lima Church. So any questions? I think the three of us can probably field easy enough.
So would it be your intention that you would continue to operate out of the church? And then this would be another facility, another program for a different set of children, probably?
As far as we've discussed, yes, we would like to continue at the St. Rose of Lima Chapel as well.
Good. As we go along in the term sheet, I felt like we were trying to establish a child care center that would be year round. And this seems like it's not quite year round.
Not completely. The model that we've had at Shiny Mountains is we follow the BV schools. Since we are a school, we follow the school district calendar. And then in addition, we offer like an 8 to 10 week summer program. So we do offer care in the summer, but there are, you know, little windows of time that families would have to find other alternative care.
Those are big windows for working parents.
Yeah.
I would like a true daycare center for our community, and I think that's what the community members want. If they supported your center during the summer when you were not available, the chances of them finding somebody else to care for them and be able to go to work. And we realize that you're not the one that gave birth to these children, but when you are a working parent and you rely on daycare, you want to be able to truly rely on your daycare person. And I don't think that this works. I don't.
I'm not sure we have better options
Mhm.
right now.
Right.
We have one application and, you know, we don't have any in-home childcare that provides year-round support here. Or the in-home childcare that Noah goes to in the summer when he's not at the Grove also takes multiple weeks off during the summer. So even in-home centers, people need breaks. Obviously, that's not the ideal scenario, but I think affordable housing.
That's
employee
employee-based.
It's run by a.
Employee-based. It doesn't have to be the same people 52 weeks out of the year.
Totally, but I'm not sure. I wouldn't want to sink this because it's not the ideal option on the table. You know, I'm sure it's something that folks would like to be able to do and maybe just can't find the staffing or have the resources, you know, year round, especially given licensing requirements and training. Like as for infant care, for instance, you can't just pick somebody off the street. They have to go through a massive amount of state training and licensing to be able to plug into an infant center. So I agree. I would like it to be year round.
I don't want to give up hope on getting what we really need for our community.
Yeah, that's how I feel, is that, and
Um,
we're early in the process
We're
here.
early in the process.
And I
maybe
would like for that to be
negotiating
one
with
of the
them,
things
they
that
would
we target.
turn around, but, you know, and maybe they could offer better than what they say they are at this point, but I would hate to give up on it so early in the game because it is so important to our community. And I know how it is to be a working mother and you're lose daycare for a month. The hospital would have told me, well, you don't need to come back after a month, you know, it's, and if you're relying on that income to support your family, you're doomed at that point.
I think we should definitely have a discussion of what is the gap to get there, you know, because this,
Exactly.
yeah, we need to know that because this is the facility that the town has decided to offer to the community for childcare for working parents. And to your point, you know, you can't just not be a working parent in June and August. So I think there's a discussion of what is the gap and what will it take to get there? That should be part of the discussion before this is finalized. I understand this is our only option and these are also negotiations. And so there's the intent of the previous versions of the board to say we want a childcare facility year round for working parents. So what's the gap? What will it take to get there?
Yeah, how do you fill that gap? Joseph?
I definitely appreciate the discussion. I too am a working parent and understand what it takes to figure out how your kids get cared for while you earn a living. I want to encourage you as a board to take a solutions-oriented approach to this, as opposed to we need to extract through negotiation approach. We do not have the luxury as a small rural resort community of demanding the sky and not providing anything. And in this case, we have an opportunity to partner with an established track record proven organization and help them, to your point, say, what is the gap? Because what I heard was a year-round calendar, your school calendar plus 8 to 10 weeks, which leaves a gap of a couple of weeks. So what is the gap really in reality? And could we start with defining success as opening the first independent licensed childcare facility for infants in the town outside of the grove, and then grow into maybe a year 5 goal is truly 52-week care.
Yeah.
But I do get some concern seeing the ups and downs of the reality of this project, that if we set the bar at perfection, we will come out with nothing.
Yeah, pardon me. My sentiment was not negotiation to extract.
Okay.
My intention here is to have a discussion because what was sold to the community is a year-round childcare for working parents. And so I would like to have a discussion of what is the gap? Because how can we get there to deliver on the vision that was promised? So I'm not intending to be like a negotiation and an extraction type thing. It's like Cindy's very poignantly pointed it out that that's the need. And so we need to further the discussion to figure out how do we get there. And not intending to negotiate and extract. That was not my intent at all.
I appreciate that. And I do want to, I guess, remind the board that since the beginning, there has been no promise of year-round childcare. That has been a desired outcome. But there has been no promises made to the community that this facility would operate at any financial level, at any schedule, serving any population. There have been desired outcomes, and we have acknowledged literally probably tens of conversations with you all over the past 3 or 4 years in this project that there are no guaranteed outcomes, but we all have a goal. And so how do we figure out how to put the pieces together to reach as close to that goal as we can get?
There has been an impression that this will be a childcare facility for working parents.
Absolutely. That is definitely a desired outcome. I just want to make sure that we're clear that there's been no promises made to the community about that.
But that has been the impression.
Well, I do think that that conversation needs to happen more broadly too, with Boys and Girls Club, with the public school, with the Grove, about summer programming. I think I just don't want that conversation to fall solely on Shining Mountains as one of the many programs that isn't able to offer truly year round, but I think 8 to 10 is better than blank 12, which is what most of us are facing now. So an expanded option for any summer programming, especially for infants, I think is a really good step in that direction. And we should take the opportunity to work with them and then figure out that gap as a community and how to address it. Yeah, I just don't want it to fall on them solely.
Yeah, I see this as like, we are faced with housing situations and working in partnerships, there's sometimes we can get deed restrictions in perpetuity, sometimes for 30 years, sometimes for 10 years, depends what it is. And then we have to value, we decide where's that line and what's most important to us. And with where we are with childcare or lack of, yes, could this be better? Of course, like shoot for this, the stars, but it's the moon's there and it's a great thing. It's closer. And I think this is something that we should take advantage of, proven concept. They're here locally. And yeah, I think there's ways we can probably work together to fill that gap, but we'd be silly, I think, to not proceed with something like this. Because we're not having people beat down the door, and I don't want to lose something that I think is be very vital. And I understand we do have time to think more about things, and I get that too, but
It's certainly not my goal to discourage you in any way. I just want this to be a little bigger than it is.
Yeah,
And it doesn't have to be immediate, but I see that out there as being important.
Yeah, and I'm not intending to be discouraging with this. I just want to make sure like that's the eye on the prize. And so a discussion of, okay, if we can't get there on day one, what's our plan to get there? How do we get there? What else do you need for us to get there? What does this board need to consider? Do we need to shift our paradigm to figure out what can we do to get us there? Because that is the impression, that is the need to have childcare for working parents. So part of the discussion, how do we get there? And I don't mean throw it open and get someone else to do a new proposal, but.
Another thing I'm curious about is how this coordinates with what the public schools are doing, with their expansion of pre-K and kindergarten, I think. Do we know how this is going to coordinate? I mean, I know we're doing infants. No one else is, right?
Yeah, part of our proposal was infant care, a room of infant care, a room or possibly 2 of toddler care, and also one of preschool as well. Because essentially that's how we can make this all financially work. We couldn't do all infant and toddler care because the teacher to child ratio is much lower when you're looking at the younger kids, and so it's just harder to pay for on staff. And so basically having a classroom of preschool as well as probably still one at the chapel would allow us, to like make some money. If that makes sense to offer. So, and I'm not sure exactly what you mean by the expansion of the public schools.
Yeah.
Well, they're doing a big project, aren't they, to bring that maintenance building into service as a preschool?
Yeah, and so they'll be adding, I think, a net of 2 preschool classrooms. My understanding at the moment, and continued conversation is definitely warranted with them, is that the Grove is not expanding in total capacity. And so I do think it's a question of maybe there's a couple added options on the preschool age. And then there's this infant toddler need that is currently, the wait list is this long, and the proposed expansion of the public school is not necessarily something to address that.
Yeah, the expansion of the Grove would be for 2.5 years of age and up, not necessarily for 1 to 2.5. So that would be the infant room expansions that they are doing would help meet that need. The infant room expansion, or the infant room wait list at the Grove right now, the seedlings room, is 90 kids. And
the wait list.
The wait list.
Wow.
And teachers or people who work for the district get first come, first serve, so that it doesn't move linearly, because as new teachers come who have kids, those kids take first place. which is great, but it's a slow moving list.
But do we know that people will be willing to pay the tuition rates here versus what they can find at the public school system? I don't
Well,
know.
that's a great question. We do, Shining Mountains does qualify for UPK, so we do get that. Our families do get that subsidy as well.
Mhm.
What we have found is that we have a hard time retaining them into kindergarten because once they have that free option. So I totally understand the question for sure, but, yeah, that's a great question. When I saw these numbers, I thought the same thing, like, is this gonna be affordable for families, across the board?
Mhm.
And that's why I think we developed this sliding scale. But I realize that it is the fact that we're a Montessori-based approach, adds a little bit of a premium to our product, if you will, because of the specialized training that our teachers require, basically. So, yeah, I understand that we might not be the ideal, candidate for this project, but we're willing to try and to, take on the project if we can make it work for all of us.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you're putting yourself forward on it. I hope it can work out. Devin, did you have something?
No, it's a good, I don't know if I have anything additional, but it is a valid discussion, and that is a gap, but it's also, if we say no to this, then what's the other option or the alternative? So, I think if there's a way we can fill that gap with creative ideas, whether it's with the rec department or using the facility when it's vacant or something like that, maybe something we could look into, but I don't know if that's part of this discussion exactly.
And I think we're not entering into a contract. We're just giving staff permission to continue with negotiation and discussion. And I would hope that negotiation and discussion would be to identify the gaps, why aren't you interested? Why can't you do it? Does the cost model not work? Bring it back to us so we can understand what is the gap. And then at that point, that goes into the decision-making process when we get to a point of actually entering into agreement. So tonight, we're just directing staff, continue with negotiations, and I would say, please include in those negotiations and discussions and identification of what's the gap, why can't you get there, and what we need to do to get there.
Well, this is for essentially to enter an exclusive negotiation. So it's not for, hey, it's essentially saying that,
Absolutely, talk to
Okay,
them about our
okay, I
questions.
just want to make sure you
Absolutely.
understand.
I totally
Yeah,
understand.
exclusive,
Talk to them
okay.
about our questions, and then we'll take that under advisement.
Well, I'm definitely with Andrew and Devin, and even though I do have some very serious concerns, I'm not against going further, and I did not want to give that impression. But I do, in the end, expect what we get out of this to be very helpful to our community, not something that, and yeah, Devin, I can see the rec department doing daycare for a month, yeah. 'Cause they don't have anything else.
Shane's not here, so Shane's like, what am I?
But different suggestions, different ideas working forward. I'm just saying what they've got is not going to help a lot of people unless we can work to fill the gaps, because the gaps are crucial.
Because we're asking them to help us meet a need for our community.
And we could do something to help fill that gap, but it's got to be good for the summertime when they're closed is usually when our town is working at its hardest, then there's a greater need, yeah.
So, I don't know whether we're working from a motion here or just,
I think a motion would be
Yeah, would help. And yeah, to touch on it, it'd be a motion to enter negotiations, exclusive negotiations. Realistically, we would still have a work session to really dive into details and further discussion as this relates before any type of agreement is put in place. So there's, still multiple conversations to be had before you're looking for, yes, enter into this agreement. So a motion now, I think it doesn't hurt to have that motion, rather than just direction.
So I move that we have staff proceed with exclusive negotiations and discussions over the proposal. And also please include some identification of what the gaps are to get
Second.
year-round full-time childcare. Help us understand why you can't get there and what do we need to do to get there? You can edit that motion, please.
We got it.
Sydney, second.
Okay, so we have Rice and Swisher. Did you get enough of that, Paula?
Yep.
She got it.
All right, good. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you so much for, getting it this far. It's great. Wonderful.
Great.
Very exciting. Okay, we'll go to item D now, which has to do with an environmental review and assessment of the property on which the child care center is to be built.
So yeah, sticking on childcare, but looking at the facility itself, as you're aware, through Pedersen's office, 1.286 million was allocated to this project. It'll be administered through HUD, with Housing and Urban Development Authority. Part of HUD's requirements is to access those funds. Any HUD project needs an environmental assessment. When it includes a multifamily component, which this does, it's looking at the Carbon Street Phase 1 as a whole project. It requires what basically is considered Part 58 that allows the local government to be the responsible entity. So as a requirement to access those funds, we need somebody to conduct an environmental. We went out to request for proposals. We received 3 back. The first one came back at 90,000. The other 2 were grouped around under 10. So one is at 6, one was at 9, essentially. Looking at those 2, the one that was the apparent low bidder, if you look at their proposal that's included in the packet, they reference not only a different municipality, but a different request for proposals for a different project. So no customization to their response or submittal. They do have a long list of experience, all on the eastern part of the United States. The other applicant or submittal from Menolino Consulting, slightly higher, but completely customized in the aspect that the submittal did reference, everything from BV Historical Preservation Committee, familiarity with the area, but probably the most important is having past experience with a project that has been awarded funding through this funding source, administered through HUD, that had started construction. That is gonna be kind of the big hurdle. That's still the one that puts a little uncertainty in it. It is, if the contracts were in place, and the idea that it took a year to even get notice of award. By that time, the financial stack for the apartment building had already been completed. The development agreement had already been signed. Construction had already started. The documentation that's been provided by HUD said, as long as those contracts were done prior to their nexus date, which is March 9th, you can continue on at your own risk. So she has experience with that. The submittal that was provided at the 9,000, already calling out in the submittal, these are roadblocks that you are most likely to run into. I've seen it in the past. Here are potential ways to navigate around that. So with that, and only being 3,000, the recommendation is to move forward with the Middle E Miniello
Yellow, yeah.
Miniello Consulting. And then get her on, or that consultant on board as quick as possible, and start navigating through that process, so.
Great. Does anyone have any comments on the environmental review selection process? Yeah, it sounds like she's really the very best of the bunch. So, is there a motion to accept that contract or that proposal?
I'll make a motion to approve the selection of Miniello Consulting LLC to provide environmental review and assessment services for the Carbon Street project.
Second.
Okay, so we have Rowe and Lucrezi. All in favor?
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Thank you very much. Okay, we are at trustee staff interaction. Do you have anything?
I was just curious how the flags are going. Are we using them?
People are using them in front of town hall, on the highway, special use permit, the permit packet has been issued. Prior to putting the flags on the highway, you gotta get a notice to proceed. Prior to getting the notice to proceed, you gotta get a Form 1315 or a pre-inspection from the maintenance,
See that stuff.
It is CDOT stuff, not the first rodeo. Tyler, which is the kind of area maintenance supervisor that can do the Form 1315. He was supposed to come on Monday, was sick. He should be here Thursday. Get it signed off on, and then we're done with that aspect of it, so. As far as back and forth from Main Street, they're always in different locations every time I come back, so.
Yeah, so that's good. That means they're being used.
Yeah.
Okay,
I was just curious about this.
okay, Maggie?
I don't have anything this week.
Okay, do you want to give us an update on the sound at all?
Oh, I had a great conversation with Janet and I've not received any emails since,
Okay,
and that was great. I did do some monitoring and we worked with our sound guys to run the BVAC events at least, so that's all been really good. And it's kind of in the weird time of gearing down for winter, so we have one more event that we'll go and check decibels on. When I did a check myself, I couldn't hear it, so that was always encouraging.
great,
Yeah,
good, thank you for handling that.
oh, absolutely.
Cindy?
A reminder that Apple Fest is this coming weekend. If you have little ones, they really enjoy that. I had something else, but I can't think of it right now.
Well, let us know if you do think of it.
Okay.
Okay, Gina?
Two things. Speaking of this weekend, if anybody is around and wants to come out, we have a big old trail race out here. 300 ladies running Midland Trail. Also, if you want to go play on the trails that morning, you're welcome to. The trails are open, but they will be busy. So just an FYI. The runners out there from 8 to 1. The other thing so more of a clarifying question. So Jewel's not here tonight, but so in the planning director report, it mentions a little bit about that there's a restaurant, planning reviews for a restaurant in West Main in the Grove. And I know we need 3 of us to essentially bring things be discussed. If we just want to know, hey, can you give us an update of what's going on? Not so much have an opinion in discussing what that is or what, but just to understand, hey, what are the things happening in town? Do we still need 3 trustees to get that? Or can I just be like, hey, can you tell me about this restaurant?
Yeah, I think it doesn't hurt to ask it this, probably in this forum. Depends on a lot of times where it's at in the application process, and that can be relayed, stuff like that. That particular restaurant, I'm not familiar with that application at this point. I don't know which one it is.
I was like, oh, cool. There's a restaurant thing. Yeah.
The one in the old house, the house that was pink.
Great place for an Indian restaurant.
Yeah, I mean, it just, not, just, when somebody asks, then I can be like, wait, what are you talking about? And be like, oh, yeah, this has, they talk, anyway. So for those reasons, just to have a better idea of what's happening. And so, but I didn't know if I had we had to have 3 people to just ask those questions, but if we.
Yeah, no, very good.
Next time around.
Yep.
Okay, well, thank you.
You good?
Nothing from me.
It's great to see you here.
Yes.
Thanks.
Next time you won't be here.
I'll be back in November, right around election day. I'll send you pictures.
Yeah.
Call me if you need me.
That's exciting. Call us if you need anything.
Yeah,
For sure. You have my cell phone number.
I don't have anything.
Okay. Paula?
I want to thank Brian for covering the meeting while I was gone. Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay, great.
good job. Thank you for doing your presentation tonight.
You're welcome.
You made it so funny.
I want to do something a little different. Like I said, I don't have all the bells and whistles that some of the departments have, but what we do there at town halls.
They don't bring liquor to trustee meetings either.
It's true.
But
The other presentations were as exciting.
So funny.
Okay, I don't have anything in particular. John?
That's good to see you all, Mr. Chief. It's been a couple meetings. No, great. Appreciate all you do. Yeah, I don't really have too much, pretty, trying to get second wind, right? Get this, get a lot to do still. Got a lot of things happening. A lot of planned projects. It's like some, singing the blues one day and, we're singing upbeat, opera the next day. So we're having some good milestones there, and also some challenges getting some manufacturing parts. So, but yeah, excited to still be here, and got a few things going on. I won't lose track of sight on some of our goals that we have, Ivy League in particular. We have a lot going on. We'll probably be getting out a technical manual soon for review, maybe breaking it down into sections so it doesn't turn into a 3-hour work session, but getting caught up on a couple of things that are important. So excited to share those with you all. Yeah, but I hope you all are doing good. You all look great, so it's good to see you.
We missed it.
Good to see you.
You look great too, Sean.
Well, I just thought about the community dinner. BB Strong dinner is Monday night.
Yep.
And I hope all of you most of you will be able to be there. It's a wonderful event, and Chief of Police Dean Morgan sent out an email about some barricades that we could potentially buy or rent. And you want to take a look at the email from him, and then they will have some of these barricades at the BB Strong dinner. So they're meant as a safety measure. There have just been some horrible incidents in the world where people have driven into crowds, and it can be very fatal for lots of people.
Yeah, if they're able to get a grant, I think that would be an interesting thing to look at, but it's very expensive.
Yeah,
It is.
Like-
And logistically, who's
Like, can
gonna
we just
store
park a
them
dump
and-
truck in front?
that's what we've been
Fire
doing.
truck.
Yeah,
We've been doing fire truck.
yeah, fire trucks.
But I suppose if you ruin one dump truck by.
That's more
Yeah, it's not
expensive.
cheap too.
We have insurance.
Yeah, if you go to the BB Strong, even if you're not going, I think it'd be good to check it out. It's interesting.
Are these?
I mean, they were there last year, so.
Oh, is it
you
right?
saw
There's the
last
same
year.
ones, yeah.
There's a video.
But yeah, they're pretty expensive.
Yeah, if it's something we're not necessarily using a lot.
Yeah.
If we
Or
can
if
just
it
rent them,
creates a
then
lot
that's
of,
fine.
manpower to move them, and
Yeah.
I think it's worth looking into for
Yeah,
sure.
it's curious.
Lots of questions. so.
And when you have water main breaks under Highway 24 and you use serious traffic control.
Yep.
That's true. If they could be used for that kind of stuff.
It
then,
can be,
yeah.
Yeah, I do. Maybe.
I know that last one we had over there by Jan's just
Yeah.
made me nervous. You guys are in a hole right on the edge of 24, and we have everyone in the world driving down 24, looking at restaurant ratings on their phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's probably a few other events that we can look at.
Don't look at those restaurants.
So anyway, do go and look at them at the dinner, but also look at the links that are in the email. There's a YouTube video about them. And wait. Brian, Sean, did you have anything else? No?
No, we're just, we're really hitting budget hard. We'll really dive, into that. We'll have the presentation, work session at the next meeting, and then draft budgets due at the following one. So we're trying to really get everything to fit as best as possible. The other thing I wanted to kind of throw out, I stopped by the community build at Billy Cordova Park. I just stopped by, I didn't put anything together. I had a baby. It wasn't my fault.
Good excuse.
But rec department, parks department, really had a good turnout. It's really amazing what they were able to get done. Having put together some playgrounds in the past in one day, so if you drive by, it's starting to look like something.
That's cool.
So, yeah, I think that's all I've got for now.
Did you say the date's October 16th?
For the appreciation breakfast. Yeah, BOT, appreciation breakfast, moving from the 2nd to the 16th. Megan and I are gonna try to plan the thing out.
Is that a Wednesday?
It is a Wednesday.
Is it a Wednesday after a board meeting?
No.
Beautiful, thank you. I appreciate the thought on that one.
Bring maple syrup if you let me know in time.
There you go.
I'll be in New England.
You also.
Well, I'll be back 15. So I can.
Another issue for people in the community to keep in mind is that the post office is refunding post office box fees
Yeah, I've done it.
for the current year, but also for up to 2 previous years.
Oh, really?
Well,
Yeah, so there's a form to file for the 2 previous years.
Can they get that form online or just at the post office?
I think it's online.
What about for the other 7 years
Yeah.
or more?
100 years.
yeah.
Like $1,000 in post office.
You can pick them up at the post office starting December 14th. in person.
Well, I've already got my refund and it was very nice to get $234 back.
That's a good surprise money. yeah.
How long
Around
did it
500.
take?
It took about a week.
really?
Just fill out the form and then they'll do a money order for you.
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah,
I'll look into
That is
that.
nice, good to know.
I could use that.
okay, Jeff, you've been very quiet tonight. Do you have anything?
Well, no, I appreciate you all going through all these issues tonight without any words from me. It's always a good thing when I'm silent. So no, I don't have anything to add. Just working on a little ordinance with Joel, dealing with some water dedication issues, and that should be another few weeks away. So it's been pretty quiet for you all, so I appreciate that.
All right, well, thanks.
Yeah, right.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Anybody else? Press? No. Okay. Okay, there's one last thing then.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, so we have Rowe and Rosenauer. And all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. The meeting is adjourned.
Will you hit the gavel just because it's fun?
There you go. It is, makes it very official.
Hey, what's my password for my computer? I don't know what it
It's
is.
throw it out the window. No, I'm just kidding.
Cause I have to like recover user every time I use this.
That seems really annoying.
It is annoying. I don't like it. I feel like it stopped working once we lost, once we got that organization.
I like that idea. And switch. I can run it on.
My amazing partner is cleaning my apartment right now. Because we moved in together.
Oh, this is the old.
Yeah, my old place.
Yeah, is that a house?
Yeah, we are renting a house now on Harbor.
That's so nice.
It's full of crap right now, but we're not really like, we're good.
Yes.
Well, it's one bedroom upstairs, but it has a finished basement. They're not technically legally bedrooms, one is.
Yes, like, I think it's a.
But
I love that. Guest room.
That's gonna